It's you expect government of your government, your elected government, to fight for your rights and to uphold your rights. In a recent case, the Delhi High Court even ordered counseling of the parents of a lesbian woman. At a certain point, it seeps into the consciousness of the community when a court passes series of judgments. Because you don't care about something doesn't mean it does not matter to you. Once rights go, they just disappear. We have to jealously guard our rights and ensure that they're not chipped away.
Hello and welcome to the Indian Express. I'm here with senior advocate Saurabh Kripal. He was a legal counsel in the Navdeep Johor's case in 2018, which the historic judgment which struck down Section 377 of IPC. And welcome.
Well, thank you for having me, Pramankar. It's good to speak to Indian Express and its viewers. And when you call me a senior advocate, it does definitely age me, but that's all right.
No, I meant senior in terms
Yeah,
of
no,
experience. In 2018, you were there at Supreme Court as fighting for us. What are your memories of that day 5 years ago?
I have very vivid and clear memories of the 6th of September 2018. Uh, I got a call from some journalists the day before because there was a buzz in the air that the judgment was about to be pronounced. The Chief Justice still had some time to retire, so it wasn't the last day and he had pronounced on the day of his retirement the way Justice Singhvi had done when he had overturned Nas the first time. So this was just one day that was plucked out. And there was a palpable excitement because after the way the hearings had gone, we were hopeful. And again, maybe we can speak about that or whatever else. But we were hopeful. But, in courts, you can never be sure till the fat lady sings or the four old men and the old woman speak. So it wasn't really sure. I asked my partner, Nico, to come to the court for the hearing of the judgment and the verdict, pronouncement of the verdict. We had to sneak him in because only lawyers were allowed in or litigants were allowed in. So we just threw a bit of, a little bit of our weight around and just said, no, we have to go in. I, of course, would have gone in any case because I argued, but he was snuck in. And then began the pronouncement of the judgment. We weren't sure how many judgments there would be. 5 judges heard. Of course, in the end, there ended up being 4 judgments, all concurring, of the Chief Justice, Justice Nariman, Justice Chandrachud, and Justice Malhotra. And each of them read out fairly substantial parts of the verdict. Normally in a court, when you go for a pronouncement of a verdict, judges will just simply say, we've allowed the appeal, we've dismissed the appeal, we've allowed the petition, we've dismissed it. It's usually a one sentence kind of a antiseptic pronouncement that happens. But I think the judges were aware of the moment themselves and were conscious of the effect that their judgment would have on the lives of people, and then took the effort to really read out very substantial portions of the judgment. And, each time they spoke, and Chief at the beginning said that, look, there are 4 concurring judgments. This is what we've done. But then each judge proceeded to read out passages from their judgment. And, there was greater and greater joy in the room. You could make out that there was almost, we didn't quite have a Mexican wave, but we could have had. It was like an atmosphere at a home game when your own team is winning. And that was clearly palpable in the courtroom. And our hearts were all jumping with joy. And passage after passage, sentence after sentence, but most importantly, Justice Malhotra's famous statement now that history owes an apology to the queer community. So that is what I remember of that day. And then just coming out and being in a daze, really. When you've been criminals for so long, when you've been fighting for something for so long, when it finally happens, uh, it's not instantaneous that you understand the implication of what has happened. But that's roughly what I felt like that day.
And like I remember being outside, and I also remember that atmosphere that all the activists and just people from all walks of life just coming in, streaming in, just almost a carnival-like atmosphere outside. the Supreme Court. And I remember thinking, how will things change for us now? And 5 years down the lane, here we are. And what are the changes, palpable changes you see in India, in the society around you in the 5 years since?
I think you understand change only when you remember what it was before the change happened. And we live our lives in a kind of a linear fashion, comparing what we did today to yesterday, to 3 days ago. We tend not to look back 5, 10 years ago in our daily lives. That's not how human beings function. So when you ask me a question, I'll just ask most people of a generation who are capable of remembering what India was 15, 20 years ago, and then seeing that the change the last 5 years have brought. And in that, I think there has been a revolution. It really has been a revolution in the mindsets of the public at large. Some part of it was that the criminalization of homosexuality operated really as a chilling effect. People were afraid to speak. People, therefore, did not speak. There was a conspiracy of silence about everything, and most people were in the closet. It was a unaddressed, and indeed, I would say, unaddressable issue. Because if you did come out and openly claim and show your sexuality, you were proclaiming yourself to be a criminal. As Vikram Seth said, we are unconvicted felons. So because of that, there was virtually no discussion about issues of sexuality in the public sphere. And there is nothing more pernicious than, which feeds prejudice as well, as not telling people or not discussing something in the open. Because I believe we are generally an okay nation, generally. And once we started discussing, and once this judgment came out, and it was no longer illegal to be queer, and people started taking that advantage and speaking out, that's when hearts and minds started changing as well. It gave people courage to come out increasingly. So a large number of people have come out, I think. When you come out, you don't just come out yourself. Often you bring out your family with you, right? So when you come out to your parents and your parents accept, or if you come out to your brother, sister, uncle, aunt, nephew, niece, friends. So there is that growing circle of people who now no longer see being queer as an object of, even if not derision, of something strange, something out of their realm of knowledge. It becomes personal to them. And the moment it becomes personal, people become more accepting. It's easy to hate something you do not know. It's not that easy to dislike your brother or your sister or whatever. So I think that is what has changed. The fact that people have come out in increasing numbers and people's perceptions have changed and people are talking about queer issues now. You have so many movies coming out, or you have these series on OTT platforms. All of this would not have been possible 5 years ago. I remember when Fire had come out in the late 90s with Shabana Azmi, and there were furor and the uproar about a movie that just hinted really at a non-conformist sexual relationship between two women. There was theaters were threatened to be burned down. Now, this stuff is being streamed into our platforms, into our TVs, into our homes, and no one's even talking about it. That's a revolution. It's a silent revolution, but sometimes the best forms of revolution are silent.
Yeah, and carrying that line of thought, I just remember, as in I wanted to point out that the court had ordered the government to run national campaign using TV, radio, newspapers, etc., to sensitize the public about the LGBTQIA plus community, which, as we can see, as far as I know, didn't happen as much. But as you pointed out, the silent revolution did happen in terms of popular culture, in terms of cinema, in terms of the way people started coming out and started discussing. So but do you think that this could have been facilitated better in terms, if had it been fully supported by all our authorities?
Yes, without doubt. I think the government will do well to remember one thing, that it is not only the job of courts to protect fundamental rights. and to step in when the rights are being violated. The first really line of defense for a citizen is the government. I mean, not everyone has the wherewithal to go to court and ask for change to happen. It's you expect government of your government, your elected government, to fight for your rights and to uphold your rights. So when Justice Nariman, in his judgment, and what you're saying, quoting is Justice Nariman in his judgment, said that there must be adequate publicity made to the judgment so that this discrimination will end. Is said it's only following a norm of normal democracy. And had the government done its job fully and properly, and here I speak not just of the central government, while that is often a very easy and a favorite whipping boy, there are many state governments as well, which could have, and because this was a direction given to all government, not just this Union of India, but also the state governments, virtually all have been remiss, other than a few, I would say, in the south, there are some states which are a bit more progressive, particularly on trans issues. So Tamil Nadu and Kerala maybe. But even there, it is almost as though you're giving some handout, giving some dole, rather than actually sensitizing establishments that they need to act with greater sensitivity to people's rights. Which is why, therefore, there is still continuing police brutality, even in the southern states. It's not as though it has stopped, which is why Justice Anand Venkatesh had to step in and issue rules and decisions. While there is a silent revolution I spoke about earlier, and I'm not undoing the effect of what all that has happened, but the specter of discrimination, and often violently, still continues. And that can only happen when the state steps in, because a lot of this violence happens from the state. It's not just private discrimination that is endemic in our country, but it is also public and state-led discriminations. For instance, failure to grant reservations to the trans community is one instance of disobeying not only the judgment in Navdeep Singh Johhar's case, but also in the Nalsar case. And this has a direct impact on people's lives. When you get public employment is one, but secondly, once you have an adequate number of trans people in public employment, and the people go and use the services and see a trans person doing a job, not just of begging on the street or dancing or prostitution, but relatively mainstream jobs, it normalizes the community. Now, I'm not saying I want to integrate everyone. The heterogeneity of the community is quite important for me. But nevertheless, it is important to show that there is more to being trans than just those three classically understood professions that they are done. So there is a failure on the part of all government, I think, to abide by not only the directions of the two judgments, but by the norms of democracy, as is expected by the citizens of this country.
And not only that, the government has passed laws that ban queer people from availing surrogacy and IVF, and has refused to modify adoption laws. So, these are things that matter to queer people in their day-to-day functioning, in the way they live their lives. What do you have to say about that?
Yes, there is an elevation, actually, of this heteronormative ideal. So the laws that you pointed out of surrogacy and adoption also operate against single people. And therefore, the idea is you can get surrogacy only when you're a married couple in certain limited circumstances, idealizing and idolizing the family unit of a man and a woman getting married and being unable to have children. And the idea is kind of cyclical, that marriage is the only time you can have children, and the only idea of having children is for the married couple, right? So this is this kind of a self-reinforcing belief, which is rooted and steeped in patriarchy, because in a marriage, it is often the man who calls all the shots. So this is this general mindset that government has, and I think that needs to change. There are petitions that have been filed challenging these very discriminatory provisions, and also provisions which don't recognize the reality of a lot of lived realities of people. It's not as though queer people don't have children. They currently do have children. It's just that you're denying those children the legal recognition of two parents. So in your aim to protect the idealized Indian family of the man and the woman, you are discriminating against the children who are voiceless. So this is the problem, I think, which needs to be sorted out soon. I do not think that the legislature or the executive is going to do anything about it, as they have shown that they're unwilling to do so. This is something the courts will have to step in. And for that, of course, let's wait for the big next verdict that we're expecting at some point, whatever that may be. That will undoubtedly have an impact on how courts see the idea of two people just wanting to live their life the way everybody else does.
I'll come to that a bit later, but before that, so I'm quoting this from Yes We Exist. This is an Instagram page which I follow quite ardently, and they point out that
We
although
all do. So do I.
yeah, they do lovely work. Although conversion therapy has been made illegal, the National Medical Commission has not taken action against many doctors who, indulge in it, and even after receiving complaints. So, I mean, yeah, you would see videos like, really harrowing videos of, such therapists, like, trying to like tell people that this works and stuff. So, they at one end we are discussing, like marriage equality. At the other, they're like, conversion therapies, which therapists who are like, going scot free, advocating all kinds of violence. What do you have to say about that?
Yeah, well, the simple answer to that is that obviously that needs to be acted against. Uh, the Indian Medical Association has said it's not correct practice. But for that, we must remember that law is merely one agent of social change. Uh, and just because one is focusing on the idea of marriage equality, because that is the only way you can bring about change in law through the courts, it doesn't mean that a host of concerted effort is not required to address issues that matter in people's daily lives that cannot be changed through enactment of legislation or through a pronouncement of a judgment, but by the daily drudgery of identifying individual violations of laws. And in that, I salute millions of, well, not millions, many activists who have worked tirelessly in the past, unspoken, unnamed, and really great work that has been done by them. Starting from people like Anjali Gopalan, I know Vivek Devan, Arvind Naik, and there are so many people who've done it, who often don't get maybe the credit that they deserve for this daily drudgery of work. So that needs to happen, right? That is how you will bring about a change. We often in India pluck the low-hanging fruit of enactment of legislation and saying that law has changed, now everything will be okay. But the actual act of implementing the law, now that's where the trouble lies. As a country which is governed by the rule of law, one of the requirements is that the law must be obeyed regularly by all who are bound by it. And indeed, everyone is bound by the law. There are no exceptions, right? So that issue of actually following the law. So when the IMA says something is illegal, to ensure that on a case-by-case basis, there is no violation. That has to happen on the ground through activism of a different sort, which is A, education of the doctors concerned, B, by empowering people to stand up against this, and of course, where necessary, as it usually is, taking action against those doctors, either by moving the IMA, which often will not do something, and maybe then going to the local courts and doing something. This is not something the Supreme Court can do. This will be something that will have to be done on a repeated basis. We see every day, for instance, habeas corpus petitions that are filed, Premankar, of loving couples who run away, same-sex couples, and courts regularly intervene and on a case-by-case basis say, no, these two people should be allowed to live together. In a recent case, the Delhi High Court even ordered counseling of the parents of a lesbian woman to do that. And while this makes headlines, at a certain point, it seeps into the consciousness of the community when a court passes series of judgments, which are done at the local level. And that's how change has to be brought about also. And this I would just ask the activists to, of course, carry on doing what they're doing. And for all of us citizens and allies and people from the queer community to become activists. It's not enough to palm off the job of removing discrimination to some unknown third parties. You all have to fight for every time some wrong is done.
Now, coming to the marriage equality question, I mean, you have spoken enough about, because you are fighting for it, you've spoken enough about it in different forums. But I would ask you, as a gay man, if you were to speak to probably a heterosexual person in a smaller city of India who has nothing to do with this conversation, why does it matter to him or her? Like, why should they care for this, like this decision or this judgment, according to you?
Well, just because you don't care about something doesn't mean it does not matter to you, right? Often when rights are fought and judgments are made, it strengthens a few things. One is the idea of the relationship between the state and the citizen. So what is being decided here is, does the state have the authority and the prerogative to discriminate against a certain class of citizens? And that, if it is permitted in relation to a certain class of citizens, could very well tomorrow apply to that small person, to the person from that small town, in some other sphere of their existence and their life. Equality means equality of every part of your being, includes the idea of dignity and autonomy. And basically, marriage equality is asking for the courts to recognize these fundamental rights. Now, it's in a specific form today of marriage equality between the queer community. But the ideals that underline that, the idea not just of equality, but also, as I said, dignity in Article 21, the right to express yourself, Article 19(1)(a), the right to be who you are, right to say what you want to. These are rights that even a person who is not today directly affected by this particular decision is deeply, deeply interested in. Not only because you'll need it tomorrow, because everyone will. Once rights go, they just disappear. We have to jealously guard our rights and ensure that they're not chipped away. We have seen what happened in this country from 2009 and 2013, when homosexuality was first decriminalized, but was recriminalized. We have seen what has happened in the US in terms of Roe versus Wade and the abortion judgment. You have the right and then it goes. So we all have to carry on fighting for the rights of everybody, because we are ultimately fighting for an idea of India or an idea of Bharat, what your preferred noun there is. And it basically tells you, what kind of country do you want to live in? Do you want to live in a country which is exclusionary? Or do you want a country which loves everybody and welcomes everybody? So this is not just about the queer people in who are upper middle class and come from urban areas, are a minuscule minority, or any other adjective you would like to put about it. This is about an idea of India and about who we wish to be.
Okay, lovely. On that note, thanks a lot for joining us for this conversation, and wish you all the best. Thank you.
Thank you, Premanku, for having me.